So I've just started reading The Wicked Boy by Kate Summerscale, and I've just finished the first part of it. Honestly, I'm really intrigued with what's going on. You have the two boys, Robert and Natty. Robert's the oldest, and Natty's the youngest. So the two brothers are living with their mother, Emily, and their father, Robert. Emily has been staying at home with them while Robert's away on a ship with work. So far, from what I understand, Robert, where he's the oldest, he likes to read what they call penny dreadfuls. And I feel like he's cool, calm, collected. Seems like he knows what he's doing, where he is the oldest and he is the go-to and likes to take care of his younger brother. Now, Natty, or Nathaniel, is what his actual name is. He seems to be a little more of a mystery to me right now. He's a little shy. He avoids controversy, and he backs out of situations if there seems to be any kind of issue that might arise. So in all, I haven't really got a feel for the younger brother yet. Hopefully that's going to come out through the rest of the book, since I've just finished part 1. And it seems to be about a 5-part book. What we have so far, it seems to have started off pretty quickly. I'm just going to come out and say it. The boys have killed their mother, Emily. They have been pawning some things, trying to get some money. They recruited the help of another worker on ships that works with their father. I believe he's Mr. Fox, John Fox, I believe. So the Fox has been staying with them, sleeping in the parlor. Don't know why it's not been super suspicious. They said that their mother's been away visiting some family members due to another death in the family. And then they also say that she's gone to different places, kind of changing the story up with different people who are coming in contact with them. So one thing that does pique my interest within this book is Robert, where he's maybe a year or so older than Nathaniel, but he seems to be pretty protective of him. Robert seems to be really interested in, seems to be like he's interested in death and murder. He followed a fellow that was supposedly convicted of killing a woman who was 8 months pregnant, possibly with his child. He was found with another woman, even though he already has a family. So they followed him. He was publicly hanged. He seemed to be pretty interested in that, and that might have some dealings with what is going on with him. Not entirely sure. Hopefully we will figure out what's going on with that. So Emily, the mother, was found after their aunt had pretty much pushed herself into the home. People has went to her and told her that there's a smell coming from the house. So she went and she had to make sure. I mean, it seems like she already knew that the mother was dead in the house. She just needed to see for herself. They contacted the authorities, and where we are right now is both boys, Fox, are detained within the jail. The copies of Robert's penny dreadfuls have been taken in as evidence, and whenever Robert has been asked, he said he did it. Said that the mother had whooped the younger brother a day or so before. Nathaniel said that he wanted to kill her, but he couldn't do it. So Robert said he would do it. All that Nathaniel had to do was cough twice that night, and that'd be when he done it. So he stabbed her, and that's where we're at right now. You know, it's kind of gruesome already starting out in the beginning, but it's keeping my interest, and hopefully through the next 4 parts we'll figure out what's going on and how it ends, because right now I'm not entirely sure. Hey guys, so as you can tell, I'm in a different outfit. I decided that instead of trying to film part 1, part 2, and so on, I decided to take just a little time off, just finish the rest of the book, but I am still going to break it down in parts, but now just 1 outfit instead of 5. So I'm going to pick up with part 2 already, since we've already discussed part 1. So one of the big things that I did notice throughout part 2 was They're trying to blame media, literature, any other things for causing evil, and maybe trying to blame it on what Robert had done. Like, they're trying to say the Penny Dreadfuls were what was putting the idea of murder and all the bad that had happened. I was just trying to blame it on them because that is what he was reading and what he was mainly concerned with. And a lot of the boys in the time period were reading those, especially the lower class. So still in part 2, we've got the trial that started. Robert Sr., who's the father, he has just landed in New York from London on the boat. That's where he's getting word of his wife's death at the hands of his son or sons. Instead of leaving right then, he couldn't afford to, so he waited for the ship to come back to London before continuing on within the process. But while he was in New York, somebody did speak with him on behalf, in relation to the case, wanted to know about Robert. He did say that there was some mental issues while Robert was growing up and still continued through, like headaches. The doctor stated that his brain was a little bit too big for what his skull can handle. But he said maybe by 14 he would have grown out of that. And of course, like as we know, Robert now is 13 years old. Robert Sr. never said Robert had been violent. He said that he mainly just became fixated on something and wanted to follow it through, and then once it was done, it was over with. Another thing I noticed is no one ever had anything ill to say about Emily, the mother. One of the friends of Emily, she said that she's a very respectable woman. She loved her kids and her family was very devoted. And there was never any reason that Robert or anyone else would be kind of hateful or mad or hated her. So the friend was mainly just trying to play Emily up to make sure that everyone understood that she was not a villain. And she was, perfect little housewife. Raised the kids perfectly. So all in all, part 2 is mainly some background on Emily the mother, John Fox, and both the children, mainly Robert. And a little bit about maybe an attorney, Charlie Sharman. He was hired. To me, he seems like he's questionable and kind of dirty for an attorney, but who knows. That was just my first opinion of him, learning a little bit about him. I believe there was some accusations in the past that he had assaulted some clerks, but he was, initially it was just kind of threw out like that. No, that didn't happen. So part 3, trial's over. Robert has been sentenced to life in prison, guilty but insane. So he's not going to be put to death by hanging, especially where he's a child at 13. I believe the jury was kind of iffy on, being the cause of death for a child. So throughout the trial, Robert kind of held himself together, but every little bit that he would maybe smirk or laugh, and that's what he did when they were leading him out of the courtroom after his sentencing. So I don't know if that might have played into the final judgment saying that he is guilty but insane, or maybe he's just in his youth didn't understand the seriousness. But after everything was said and done, newspapers and other media sources spoke little about his mental condition, was mainly talking about maybe how it happened, not what it happened or why he is the way he is. And it kind of seemed like they were looking for sympathy for him. And again, I believe it was probably an age thing. And then I know when we first started talking about this book, they were kind of going in on the Penny Dreadfuls and trying to throw them under the bus, saying this is the cause. But the judge ruled, and I believe both sides agreed, that the literature had nothing to do with what had happened in this case. So with that, it kind of just put the whole Penny Dreadfuls read material put it to rest, saying that it's not going to cause this. So moving on to part 4, where he is lodged. I believe it's like for the criminally insane. From what I understand, it seems like it is a super nice place. I believe it's very respectable. It treats their inmates or patients like they're people and not just like an animal with a mental issue. And I believe that might play some roles into how, and maybe not necessarily recovery, but coping and getting everything lined out for themselves kind of helped it fall into place. Employees at the asylum are just average Joes. Like, they didn't want any kind of military personnel involved, just because I feel like it would also be kind of if you had military personnel, what their training is, they'd want to be maybe more hands-on and less understanding. So he was there maybe 17 years, but he was eventually conditionally released. He was released to the Salvation Army in Essex. From there, he was working as a tailor, just like he was in the asylum where he was lodged. He was getting paid. He had, he was moving up in the camp, had his own lodgings, owned things. He was owning things. Then he eventually went to Australia, met up with Natty, and that's where he began his new life. Well, that's what I would consider his new life. So in part 5, the Salvation Army, I believe, allowed him that sense of adventure, what he had always been longing for. The Salvation Army let them, they were sent people to Canada, New Zealand, and other places to maybe help with people of the area. It's kind of like what they do now. So he had went to Australia. From there, he joined the Australian Army and became a stretcher bearer / medic within that. It's kind of strange to think, like, where he started, he, caused harm to somebody, and then once he had grown, he is now in a place where he's helping people, saving them. It's kind of like a flip-flop. Maybe he realized it, maybe he didn't realize it, but he had definitely grown. So within the Australian Army, they had traveled some. Natty also joined. He was working on a ship. I believe he was like making sure it pretty much kept the ship going, throwing the coal and making sure everything is in there. And if they didn't have him, their ships wouldn't be moving. But Robert, he got involved with the band while in the Army, kept the soldiers' spirits up, kept his spirits up, gave him something to do, so just work. So throughout his military career, he had been praised, for bravery and helping everybody that he could. He had been given medals. And one thing where I felt a little pride is the Prince of Wales. When they were giving them their medals, he dubbed them adventurers. And I think that's what Robert wanted this whole time, is to go on an adventure. And here he is, and dubbed an adventurer. So it kind of came full circle, not necessarily how you would want it to come full circle, but it did, and from there I think he had succeeded. All in all, I really enjoyed this book. It didn't go completely how I was expecting it. I would have loved to know a little bit more about Robert and Natty as they were older in their adulthood. Did they get married? Did they have a family? What happened after the war? That's what I really love to know. I believe I read that there was a little, Robert's father came and visited him in the asylum. I wanted to know how those visits went. There might not have been any records that she could have pulled, but that's something I definitely would have loved to look into. So all in all, The Wicked Boy by Kate Summerscale is probably one of the top reads that I've read this entire year. I am definitely going to be looking into a little more of her work, because this has definitely turned me on to something that I wasn't expecting to be reading this year. But how fitting is it? It's October. Halloween's around the corner, and who doesn't love a good murder story, true or not? This is definitely based on a true story. It's a true story. I highly recommend it, and hopefully we'll be seeing a little bit more from her in my next videos. So thank you all for watching. If you have any comments, suggestions, or anything, just leave me a message. But thanks for bearing with me. Hopefully my videos will be getting better. We'll be learning as we go. So like and subscribe. See y'all later. Thanks.